Alright, it is snowing, which means I'm inside again this week, and thus I'm gonna go on another rant that's gonna invariably end up at get off the internet. I wanted to talk a little bit about the internet and the illusion of choice, the illusion of control in the content you're browsing, what you're interacting with, the videos you're watching, even the sites you're visiting, and the choices you're making on those sites, okay? Websites are almost always using tactics in order to force your hand in the choice you're making. Any website that is owned by a business, a corporation, has an intentional idea of what they want you to be doing on their website, okay? And we can start with YouTube as an example here, right? What does YouTube want from the viewer? It wants the viewer to watch videos. It wants the viewer to spend as much time as possible on the platform, because the more time you spend watching videos, the more money they make, right? The more videos you watch, the more ads you're going to watch, and the more money YouTube is going to make. And yes, some of you are using ad blockers, but the majority of YouTube viewers are not using ad blockers. So the more videos that are watched, the more money YouTube makes. So YouTube has a very clear incentive here to get you to spend more time on the platform. And there's a lot of ways they do that. Some are subtle, some are less subtle. We could start with looking at the algorithm, right? What is the key thing about the algorithm? The algorithm tries to unite a viewer with the videos that it thinks the viewer is going to watch for the longest amount of time. Okay, that has been one of the key points, if not the number one point, of the algorithm for years at this point. Average view duration, average view percentage, average watch time, okay? That is one of the most important metrics on YouTube. And yes, that's important for creators, but more importantly, that's there for YouTube, because YouTube wants to make money. Okay? And we don't have to look any further than YouTube yet again to see another tactic that it uses to keep people engaged and on the site, okay? Look at infinite scrolling. That is employed in YouTube Shorts, but it's the same on Reddit or Instagram Reels or TikTok. Why do these websites all have infinite scrolling? To get you to spend more time, right? How many times have you gone to look at a single video or a single post and then you ended up on that site for 10 minutes or an hour? Because you get trapped in this loop, this cycle of just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, okay? And I'm, not immune to this either, right? Nobody is, because it's a psychological tactic. It's intended to keep you on the site. And there's actually a name for these tactics. It is called dark patterns, which sounds like a made-up name, like it sounds like it's out of a sci-fi movie, but that is actually the word for it. If you've studied computer science, you might have even, taken a class about this. And this is, a documented phenomenon. Sites using tactics, psychological tricks, essentially, in their UI and UX design in order to force the user's hand in terms of what they want the user to be doing, whether that's spending more time on the site, or picking a specific choice, or buying a product, right? There's a very clear example here you'll often see on sites that are trying to sell products, like 20 people have this in their cart, there's only 5 remaining, or like sale ends in 10 hours, and like these are, clear marketing tactics, and sometimes you can clearly identify these and, say, oh, I'm not going to fall for that, that's clearly just, a marketing tactic the site is using to fool me. But sometimes you'll also have less obvious ways in which sites are using, manipulative UI and UX design, right? How many times have you tried to go opt out of tracking on a site, or opt out of data collection, or even delete your account, right? And it's how many hoops do you have to jump through to go do that? How many pages do you have to click through in order to find those options? Even when sometimes the options are legally required, it might take you 10 or 15 minutes to go find those options, and like you have to email verify to delete your account and all this sort of stuff. And that's very intentional on the part of the website. They don't want you to leave. They don't want you to stop making them money. They want you to stay and make them money, and they purposefully hide these options. And how many other tactics can you think of that sites are using? And I would encourage you to go to all the, popular websites and try to actually look at them and see, wait, this UI is actually really purposefully designed to force my hand in terms of the choices I'm making or the content I'm looking at. And you can look at search engines too and see, what are search engines like now? Usually, if you put in a query, you're going to get the top results, just the same websites over and over, right? Like if you have like a Linux question, for example, and you type that into whether it's Google or any other popular search engine, you're going to see Reddit, you're going to see Stack Overflow, and you're going to see a bunch of these AI-generated sites where it's like these paragraphs of text, like explaining your problem, but they really don't explain anything, and the commands aren't even like the right commands that they're talking about. Like we've all seen these trash AI-generated sites, but those are essentially what's going to be in your search query, the top results that the search engine is showing you. And you think you have a choice in terms of these sites you're picking, but how many other hundreds of sites might be going over the topic that you queried, the topic that you entered into the search engine, that are not going to be, those top 5 sites that just appear for that entire first page? Okay, the search engine is essentially forcing your hand as much as you think you have a choice in terms of the sites you're picking. You have a choice out of the limited options they're giving you. And it's the same thing if you look at, videos on the YouTube homepage, right? The videos that are going to appear on your homepage are the videos that YouTube wants you to watch. You might think you have a little bit of a choice in that, maybe there's 20 videos and you're going to pick one out of those 20, but that's still the 20 options out of the, nearly infinite number of videos that YouTube could be showing you. And you can look through as many sites as you want. Pretty much every site that's run by a big, corporation now is going to have this sort of UI and UX design, and the design intended to get you to pick the choices they want you to pick. And if we go back and thinking about how, websites used to be back in the day, the sort of Web 1.0 that we're all kind of a little bit nostalgic for, back when you had, leopard print backgrounds and crazy fonts and, GIFs everywhere and, stickers on pages, all this sort of stuff. We're all a little bit nostalgic for it. But what was something that websites all had in common? They were finite. Okay, you could get to the end of the site. There was only a certain number of pages on the site. You could, browse through and get to the end of the page. And then, maybe you'd click a link to another page. But when there was an individual person creating that website, there's only so many pages on the site. And even when you have a site, created by a business, there was still only so many pages on that site. And how would you find sites? Well, you would hear about them from word of mouth, first of all, or you would click a link from another site, or you would go to a search engine and find just random websites. You would go search a query and random websites would pop up. And this started to, stop being a thing when SEO became very popular, search engine optimization, optimizing websites in order to appear, ranked higher up in search engines. And then you had, even businesses paying to get their websites ranked higher, or, all sorts of deals between search engines and sites. And it essentially just got worse and worse over time, and then more and more of these dark patterns or deceptive design tactics, whatever you want to refer to it as, essentially the psychological manipulation tactics that websites are using, it became more and more prevalent, okay? And you might be looking at all of this and thinking, wait a minute, this is really manipulative, right? How is this okay to do? And the answer is sometimes it's not. There are laws passed about this. There are times at which businesses are not allowed to do this. And it's a very interesting moral and ethical question of where do you draw the lines, right? When businesses are allowed to do this sort of thing, when they're not, right? And it's interesting to think about. And as usual, I'm not really telling you where to draw that line. I'm not telling you what to think about this, but I am telling you to consider it. I think it's an important question to think about, both individually and as a society, right? Where do we draw these lines? What is okay for businesses to do? What is okay for websites to do? And when does it just become too manipulative? It's a very interesting question to think about, but I think when we just look at it on a personal scale, I think the most important thing is just being aware that sites are doing this, being aware that, yes, sites are, purposely hiding those opt-out buttons. That's no coincidence that it's so hard to get to your opt-out or your account delete. And just be aware that the videos that YouTube is showing you, that's the videos they want you to see. The websites appearing in your search query, that's the websites that the search engine wants you to see, okay? And the only way to sort of escape this is to just go back to just browsing people's personal websites or browsing, as many decentralized sites as possible, anything that is not just ruled by a corporation that is trying to get you to make money for it, essentially. But honestly, the bigger picture, I'm always going to end up back at just get off the internet, It's Sunday. Go spend time with your friends and your family. Go outside. Anything besides the internet. I like ending videos on that, okay? Anyways, I'll see you next time. Peace!